got a big love coming, and you know he wasn't there for the show. Yeah,是啊。The dark is wandering, but the light is not enough for her. 其实挺爱的。When she goes on proud tonight, when she goes on proud tonight. 最近也是，你要感觉要马马虎虎，也不像以前了，有些东西不像以前那么方便，你知道吗？When you have to bottle up a lot of internal things and you can't tell it to the world, that drives a certain level of depression sensitive people. And some people are just naturally depressed. And I think in the music industry right now, we've made people into legends, but they were just people. And we've turned these legends into truths. And because of that, everyone is living in a lie. That sounds very roundabout. Let me think about a way to express that in a way that makes sense. It's the only industry right now where we allow people who are the most basic of people to be viewed as gods. And when you live amongst gods, you feel quite inadequate. But you know, and this level of personal inadequacy of why am I not David Bowie? Well, David Bowie wasn't David Bowie. But
Till we made him David
Bowie, yeah.
Okay.
Well, why am I not, you know, like, why am I not Leonard Cohen? It's like, right. Again, Leonard Cohen is not Leonard Cohen until we made him Leonard Cohen. He played a character, and they all play characters. And in a way, we've turned these characters into gods, and we live in the shadow of gods. And these musicians cannot look at themselves and address things as humans sometimes.
You said something before that I found really interesting. It was just sort of an aside where you talked about you were invited to these conferences or several music conferences, and the majority were these white men. And
old white men.
Old white
men.
And
I would have been up for like any kind of male that was under 40, you know, like... you know, just to have a bit of eye candy at least. But no, my boyfriend is eye candy. So.
The eye candy aside, something I thought was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
At least in the States, a lot of people are talking about the two sort of more radical movements that have happened recently, besides like sort of Bernie Sanders,
like Key Change, for instance, yeah,
or like Me Too, or Black Lives Matter. Do you feel that when you are invited to these events, is there a genuine questioning of these old white men for themselves, going, oh my God, we've been horribly misogynist?
No, absolutely not. No, they're like, the society is questioning them, and they're just like, you know,
there's a level of sensitivity which is forced upon them. I wouldn't say that there was it's there. I mean, give them enough alcohol and the truth comes out. So you just go to these music conferences at 1 o'clock and then you'll see exactly what they think. But at 4 in the afternoon, they're all very nice.
Why would they even care about that pressure, though? If they're in these very...
Oh, no, that's the good thing. There is a level of pressure now that says, hey, the world has been incredibly unfair, but that's never been anything that anybody doubted, I think. And anybody who truly doubts that has been probably are the unfair ones, the ones driving that unfairness. It's, like Me Too, Black Lives Matter, everything, one of these things are just... they're just things coming to a particular tipping point that's always been there. But I don't know how, but in a way, by making them so singular and so, direct, it kind of somehow glosses over the greater problem society, and you target like these things which frankly are arbitrary fixes to much bigger issues.
Can we link them up, though? Like in this 60s, in that very brief window we had so far in history where there were several
Most people in the 60s were incredibly racist, right? We
Sure.
see the smallest part of society. That was like a very, very small part of society. Most of the 60s were people that were very, very racist. But the movement of the minority was what caused change. And now it's a majority movement, right? I don't know.
Links in a chain. Where if
Wouldn't
we
that
just
be wonderful?
try to have Black Lives Matter as the sole focal point, that will lead to these larger systemic problems being ignored. But if we can link up these focal points into sort of a chain...
Oh, no, I mean, I don't say it's all arbitrary. I mean, but there is... I did say it was arbitrary, but there is a certain level of arbitrariness about it. We have social change in society because we are more connected as individuals. And because we are more connected, we can empathize with each other better. By addressing small things like Me Too and Black Lives Matter, and by having these stories spread on the internet, everybody can understand getting pulled over a cop and the feeling of fear. Even if you're not Black, when you're white and you're a 16-year-old kid, you get pulled over for the first time, you also feel fear. So they can reflect upon these empathetic impulses, and we can create a certain level of social change. However, I wouldn't say they're necessarily directly links in a chain. I think society right now, the segregation is just being shifted. Before, it was very easy to say, okay, women and Black and white, Latino, etc. But now it's the real new version of racism is education, language skills, like how you speak, class, financial background, region. So in a way, humanity is moving to more tolerant of certain categories, but humanity is also becoming less tolerant of other categories. And in that respect, I think, we have to constantly be vigilant and see that it's not so simple as don't grab pussies. That there are other things in society that we should be watching for. And there is fascism also in feminism. There is fascism also in race equality. If it's done improperly, fascism can exist in anything that is a set of rules which dictate that certain people are better and certain people are worse. So you have to also take a step back and say how much of this is being used as a tool for bludgeoning the ideas that could come from a free society, and how much of this is actually helping a society become more free.
Well, what would you want to talk about for the Chinese music industry? What are some of the good broad stroke question would be, what are the challenges that you see in the Chinese music industry, and what are you trying to do to address them? Not all of them, obviously, but what areas are you interested in?
The challenges in the Chinese music industry, I feel like, they're too many gardeners and not enough plants. Everybody is trying to garden. Everybody is trying to, not enough seeds maybe. Everybody is trying to make things a certain way, code things a certain way, grow things a certain way. I don't think that there are people who are trying to destroy the Chinese music industry. I think generally, even in government and in cultural aspects, everybody wants it to grow as an industry. Okay, it's the fact that you always talk about music industry. But the industry part only happens after it grows as a culture. And right now, everybody is gardening the industry and killing the culture. So that's one of the reasons why it's very stunted. The same thing that happened in film in China. When you kill the culture and you grow the industry, what you end up having is basically, the shittiest films ever made in a constant stream by great directors that used to make good movies. So what do I see as a problem with the Chinese industry? That everybody's focused on the industry bit. And if people can actually give a little space for plants grow naturally in wild soil, but if there are too many gardeners, then you will have a homogeneous industry that is very prone to being destroyed by any shocks. Just like there is no biodiversity in the Chinese music industry ultimately. And ultimately you will have a reduction of culture with investment, not an increase of culture with investment, just like happened in the film industry. So just get the gardeners out, let things grow a little bit more. Make sure you put the water and the fertilizer and the soil in the right place. But outside of that, give us a little bit more space.
Where would it grow if there weren't gardeners or if there weren't artificial controls? Where do you think some of the issues?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point, isn't it? I'm not supposed to know. If I know, then I'm a gardener.
Do you see any bands or any trends where it's doesn't make sense, where it for all the controls or barriers that were put in place, the band is still thriving or the scene is still thriving even if it...
If I see them, then they're not good enough. It sounds kind of strange to say that, but if I see them, they're not niche enough, because I'm in the industry. I'm part of the industry. I'm part of the machine, and I'm constantly looking like all of my cohorts are looking. Information passes very quickly from person to person. So who is an outlier? Who is a person who is outside of this thing? If they're outside of this thing, then I wouldn't see them. You would probably have to go somewhere that we are not. You would probably have to talk to somebody who is not part of this industry and do a lot of searching. And then when you find them, then that's the end of them, unfortunately, because of the internet. Not because of, you know what, I hate to say this over and over again. The government is not what's killing the Chinese music industry. Money is, investment is, venture capital is. Because when you put too much, and just like the Cultural Revolution, prior to that, they had the Great Leap Forward. When you put too much fertilizer in the soil and you have too many people in a collective farm trying to grow shit, then what you will have is basically famine. And cultural famine is happening now in China in so many ways. And a lot of times when we have certain things explode, like the hip hop in China, it's a reaction to the famine. When people see something, anything, even if it feels just a little bit real, 90% of it's fake, but just 10% of it feels real, they will go crazy for it because they're starved. And I think in a way, they need to stop just throwing fertilizer. They need to be a little bit more like a father figure or a mother figure, and trickle out not large amounts of money to balloon up people's egos and bank accounts, but just make sure that at least the soil, the water, everything is balanced, and just let nature take over. And to not be so fearful of what grows, because all good things should make you feel at least a little bit uncomfortable, because it's new. New things, if it's perfect and it feels just right, then it's probably redundant.
Well, I guess the last question would be for your label. What's a good way to link people up if they're not in China? I mean, what's a good web presence to point people to?
We have a Facebook page that nobody checks, especially since I've personally cut off Facebook until I see more action from Mr. Zuckerberg. But yeah, we do have a Facebook page that we're using, and unlike Elon Musk, we don't have the money to completely close it off. So you can always go to our Facebook page. Just look for Fake Music Media. It's not that often updated, but there's lots of contact information on there. You can also contact my partner. He's the only person who routinely answers English emails in our office. Everyone else is on WeChat. We're all addicted. I think that's the best way to link with us.
Even as if you had to sort of offer introductory sampler plate of like maybe one song or one band or one venue, what would be just a great introduction? It could be to your label or just to a first timer to the Beijing or Chinese music scene.
First timer, man, that's hard.
They've contacted
You know,
me.
just start with the original one. Start with the old one. Listen to 崔健一无所有. Just start with that one, and then link it up from there, because you can't. You know, whatever horrible TV shows have made 崔健 less relevant in the last few years, that track is still the beginning of everything. So just start with that track. It's the genesis. So
can you just expand on that very quick for people who don't know?
Nothing to my name.
Nothing to my name.
Man, I don't really have time for that. But 崔健 is like, I guess the godfather of China rock and roll, more or less. He was at one time one of the most relevant voices. He sang during the June 4th movement, 1989. We call it June 4th here in China, but otherwise known as the Tiananmen Square incident. He recorded an album that was very influential, and to this day, some cab drivers, if they're kind of like, you know, underground dudes, they will still pump that very loudly at me if they see I'm carrying gear, you know, like, so they're all like, oh, gear. He was. I was like, okay, all right, dude, yeah, I'm a musician, dude. So yeah, that's kind of, yeah, it's you start with that, and then you kind of go on from there. Yeah.
Well, it was a pleasure talking to you today. I didn't want to ask too many questions about, to be honest, I didn't want to ask too many questions about women in rock and roll, because I'm sure you get that all the time.
Oh, no, not really. Nobody dares ask that question because they always feel like it's horrible and cliched, but in reality, nobody dares ask it, so I don't actually get to answer it very often. But yeah, women in rock and roll, we exist.
Yeah.
We're generally badass.
That's what I've seen so far.
Yeah, and we don't have healthcare, so having children sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, unlike so I mean, that's about it.
That's an